Hey there, leaders. Like a lot of you, I grew up on the beaches of South Florida, and it was not unusual to see a wave come crashing onto the shore, and only to watch as a few seconds later it would pull back into the sea. I think there's a lesson there for us, a lesson with respect to momentum. It's not unusual for God to give us a big momentum boost, and then to watch things kind of coil back. One of the true truths of Scripture is that God is sovereign, and yet we still have to do our part. And I want to tell you, you have been doing a fabulous job of doing your part in helping us to care for all the flock. Neat days at Spanish River. At the same time, as we look ahead, and particularly as we get close to wrapping things up with the call, and we look at the days to come, we realize there's going to be that natural drawing back. People are kind of, going back to old ways, maybe not be as engaged in the small group as they had before. And consequently, there are a couple things I think that we need to do as leaders to ensure that the momentum that God is giving us, we keep working as best we can so that we can truly care for all the flock at Spanish River. And I think one of those is, as groups, that we constantly remember to put out that open chair and think, who can we be inviting to come and join us in this group that God's given us? So I want to encourage you along those lines. The other thing is to be praying that God would help you to identify who that person or persons are in your group that can take on the role of leadership down the road. And that might be soon, it might be a little farther along, but to constantly stop and say, who's my apprentice? Who's that person I'm bringing along? I was spending some time the other day in the Word in Matthew chapter 9 in verse 37 and verse 38. And Jesus said to His disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore pray earnestly to the Lord of the harvest that He'd send forth laborers into His harvest. And I want to say thanks for the great job you're doing laboring in that harvest field, and pray that we would together seek God to draw more people into the harvest field and the work that He's given us to do in leading small groups, so that we can continue to care better than ever for all the flock at Spanish River. God bless you as you really strive to do that and as you serve Him. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Casey, and he'll tell you a little bit more about this week.
Hello, leaders. This is Casey, and I'm excited to be talking about next week, which is week 6 of our curriculum, The Call to Ordinary Greatness. It's a study on the life of Stephanus, but what's interesting is we're going to spend some time talking about spiritual gifts. Now, spiritual gifts sometimes make people a little bit uncomfortable. They don't know how to approach the issue. Sometimes they're a little bit shy to talk about their spiritual gifts, almost as though they were boasting. But what we have to understand is it's not boasting. It's really giving God the glory for the way that He has gifted you. Great place to camp out with your groups is page 54. You'll see it here in the curriculum. The question reads, talks about Stephanus and how he devoted himself to the service of the saints. And then Tommy challenges us to do 3 things. The first one is learn all you can about spiritual gifts. And he has another question where he asks you to list those. He then tells you to ask God and others about how it is that they think you've been gifted, or asking God to reveal His gifting to you. And then finally, the experience part, going out there and trying it out, seeing where you've been fruitful and seeing areas that you haven't been. I want to challenge you in preparation to really work through those areas, know your spiritual gifts, and be able to share how you believe God's gifted you, and even a story I think will be very powerful. Hey, as we come to the beginning of week 6 in the curriculum, really like for you to be thinking intentionally about 1 or 2 names from your group that you're going to be inviting to our Leadership 101, which is coming up at the end of February. Thanks, and have a great group.